Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to deploy a 11gr2 database that each node will have their own database home. Now that by far is probably the most common configuration. So in other words, we will have rack1 that has a database home locally. Rack2 will also have a database home locally. Alternatively, what is introduced as a new feature is called the cluster file system based on the ASM disk group. Now you may have noticed that in the alert log it has complained that ACFS ADVM is not compatible for this version of the operating system. The truth it is just that it requires the 11.2.03.5 PSU to make it work properly. Now, since I intend to show you both ways, let's get the separate home on their own home installation working, and then we can try as a group to get ACFS to be operational by applying the patch. All right, so the very first thing you want to make sure is you want to make sure your cluster is actually running. CRS-CTL, check cluster. And let's make sure all nodes are up and running. Okay. Now, if it's telling you any service is not online and you have just restarted the server, give it some time. It will come back up in time. Now, the cluster verify space stage minus list will show you all the available stages you can tell your cluster verify to run. Now, if you don't find the cluster verify, don't forget you always want to source in the proper SID. Now, the proper SID is available by looking at your Aura tab. Okay, so this tells me my rack1 is on plus ASM1, so an Aura env plus ASM1 will source in my environment variable. And this will allow me to look at the various stage that cluster verify can do for me. So I want to do a pre-DB install check. I want to make sure I am ready to install the database without any issues. There are other things that you can do, such as hardware and operating system, cluster file system setup, cluster resource installation, that's just your cluster installation, ACFS configurations, and so on and so forth. So the stage we want here is pre-DB install. Now there are a bunch of other parameters when you are looking at pre-DB install. We're going to let the help file tell us what we need. So when we say pre-DB install, we need to specify the node and optionally the database version and what is the database group and the directory where you intend to install the database on, so it will check permissions for you, etc. All right, so there it is. We're going to do as prescribed. Pre-DB install minus n rack1 comma rack2, and we're going to specify the version being 11gr2. And even if you don't specify OSDBA, it's going to assume the DBA. Now the directory that we're going to install it on will be on /app/oracle. We don't have the directory yet. We're going to use OUI to create those directories, so I'm going to erase that for the time being. That's good enough. All right, so running this is going to give us, it's going to run through a checklist of DB installation requirement. And this may be a bit lengthy checking, so node reachability, make sure they can talk to each other, make sure passwordless SSH, also known as user equivalence, is configured. Clusterware versions, ASM versions are all acceptable. Alright, so the command run installer is going to kick off the source database. This came from the software download from the Oracle website. If you have my Oracle support subscription, you can download it from there. If you don't have my Oracle support, you can always go to otn.oracle.com and download the non-patched version 11.200. Now, once that's started, after some time, this will come up, and it'll be the first page. Sure. We're going to continue on with the installation. Alright, we're going to skip software updates. There's no reason to update anything here. Okay. Now, the installation option, when it comes up, and here you have three choices: create and configure a database, which will install the database software, and configure running database. You can also install the database home only, and after the home is installed, use DBCA to create the database you like, or upgrade an existing database. We're going to choose create and configure a database. Okay. Click on next. Alright, we're going to specify a server class installation. Alright, now it detected this server is part of a rack, so now you are given a choice: do you want to install a single instance database or rack cluster database? Whoa, what just happened? Let me go back real quick. Sorry? Can you repeat that? Alright. So here we'll specify which node we want to install the database on, rack 1, rack 2. The SSH connectivity will give you a chance to test if the user equivalencies works. Alright, once it does, click on next. Alright, now as far as the typical install and advanced install, you may want to go to advanced install just so you can adjust some settings within advanced. We're trying to keep this database as minimal as possible, okay, because we just don't want to spend all that storage. So in the options, I'm going to unselect all these unnecessary stuff. Okay, so I'm going to remove all the options. Click on next. Because the less thing we have to load, the less memory footprint and storage we'll need. Okay. I'm just choosing enterprise because it's not that much difference, and I am unselecting the components within the options. Just remove everything. Don't really need anything, and deselect all. Now in the software location, our Oracle base is app/Oracle, so our Oracle home in this case, you really should follow the proper location. Yes. Alright. Alright, okay. Okay, so the top one is your Oracle base. That's also going to be your ADR home, Automatic Diagnostic Repository home. The bottom setting is your software location. This will be your Oracle database home. So usually the convention would have you specify things like this: product 11.2 or Advanced. Okay. All right. Now, the proper place to set it is under your Oracle base, create a product 11.2 DB Home 1. Now, those are the proper naming convention, but I personally don't like to type a whole lot. So I'm just going to say DB Home 1. So I don't have to go to a many level depth later. Enterprise. Okay. All right, click on next. Right. Now this software location will be created in both node. And make sure that the path is reachable and has the right permission to install the software under. Yes, go ahead. Try to maximize your virtual machine screen. Now the global database name, since our first one is ORCL, let's call it ORCL.class, so we don't have to type local domain. That's a lot of letters. And the SID will be ORCL. Sounds good. All right, so on the next screen, this is where we can adjust the memory down quite a bit. Okay. We don't really need a lot of memory here. Okay. Just because we don't have all that memory on the virtual machines anyways. Uh, on the securities, doesn't really matter. We don't need sample schemas. We don't really need anything here. Just make sure the memory is as low as you can possibly get, 256. I don't think it goes anything below 256. So. Yeah, because the more we use, the more likely it's going to go into swap and it's going to slow down this installation. Right. It's not really a choice not to install one from here, but if you do a software only install and use DBCA to create a database, then you can choose not to install the enterprise manager altogether. I really am wondering why is there not an option to not install it, but okay, click on next. Oops. Alright, so to standardize everything, we're going to put Oracle. The ASM storage password is Oracle. We will be placing our data file on ASM. So click on next. And earlier we have set up the ASM disk group data, and that's where we're going to keep the data file for this instance of database. Now this is not for your database home. This is just for your database data files. Right. We don't need automatic backup, so do not enable automatic backup. All right. We are going to place our data in the data disk group. Our OCR is very tiny, and we can't use that for our database. So we'll leave that. We're going to choose data, this group. Yes, go ahead. But there is no rule to say that you cannot put your database file on where you keep your OCR. It's certainly possible and it's doable. There's no hard rule that says it cannot be done. It's just that we decide to use a separate one. Okay. Next. Yes, go ahead. Make sure there's no backups and all passwords are just password. Sorry, all passwords is Oracle. Recommended password complexity, and yes, we will continue. We're just going to choose DBA group for both sysupper and sysdba roles. That's fine. Go next. Yes, go ahead. And folks, this will take some time, probably upwards of 30 to 40 minutes to complete. Now, please hold off from running the root sh. It's going to pop up with the root sh, just like last time. Please wait until we can do it as group when we come back from our lunch break.